Ronald Garrett Mercer woke up precisely at 5:17 a.m., not 5:15, not 5:20. His neighbor, Linda Everett, whose window faced his house directly, could confirm. The light in his bedroom turned on with Swiss clock precision. She'd witnessed it for 6 straight years while drinking coffee by her kitchen window. The first 3 minutes were dedicated to checking his pulse and blood pressure. Then came the 3-mile run along a route he'd meticulously mapped in 2017 after his heart attack. Every turn, every incline calculated to the exact foot. His sister Margaret in Tulsa, Oklahoma, received a call every evening at 5 p.m. Not 5:01, not 4:59. She'd already have the phone in her hand by 4:58, knowing the call would come exactly 2 minutes later. In 11 years, he'd missed only once, the day he was hospitalized after his heart attack. Even then, he'd managed to text, "Running late. Don't worry. 5:03 p.m." He wore the Medtronic SyncGuard GPS bracelet on his left wrist over his Casio Pro Trek PRW 3500 watch. But if you asked him about navigation, he'd pull a Brunton's TrueArc 3 compass from his pocket. "Electronics fail," he'd tell his students at survival training. "Batteries die, signals drop, and suddenly you're just meat in the wrong place." His 0.8-acre property had been scanned by himself down to the inch. He knew every dip, every subtle shift in the terrain. When a neighbor's maple tree began leaning toward his fence 3 years prior, Ron was the first to notice the 0.9-inch tilt. He confronted the neighbor with a laser rangefinder and a spreadsheet. "When it falls, it crushes my greenhouse. You've got 2 weeks to cut it down." The greenhouse. That's where he grew orchids. Not roses, not tomatoes. Orchids, the most temperamental flowers. Each had a name. "People think they're just plants," he told the mailman who once caught him watering them. "But they respond to sound, to touch. They know when they're loved." The mailman later recalled how Ron ran a finger along a petal, and it seemed to tremble in response. He distrusted surveillance cameras but believed in silver threads. After his heart attack, he began sewing them into his clothes. For EMF protection. His jackets, shirts, even socks contained thin silver strips. "Not paranoia," he explained to his surveying colleague. "Physics. They reflect harmful frequencies." 4:20 p.m. He stepped into the yard to check the orchids, wearing his bright Orange Armor Pro windbreaker with reflective strips. In his pocket, a cold steel Voyager folding knife for trimming stems. Always carried in the right pocket, blade facing his thigh for one-handed deployment. 4:30 p.m. Neighbor Linda saw him wave sharply toward the woods. "Thought he was shooing a deer," she told police, but the motion was abrupt, like he was adjusting something at his neck. 4:47 p.m. His watch stopped. The hands froze at that exact time. The battery was new, tested just the day before. 5 p.m. The call to his sister never came. 5:03 p.m. The GPS bracelet sent its final signal. Coordinates pointed to a well, but the chip was found in a dead crow's beak. The bird, according to veterinary analysis, had died no later than 4:50 p.m., 4:31 p.m. Linda Everett turned to the window after hearing her dog bark. Through the fence, she saw Ron standing by the greenhouse, his orange jacket stark against the gray sky. He suddenly raised his arm toward the oak grove behind the property, an unnaturally sharp motion like he'd yanked something at his neck. Then he turned and disappeared around the greenhouse corner. Linda assumed he was just adjusting his collar. 4:34 p.m. Construction worker Carlos Mendoza was smoking by his pickup when he heard a shrill yelp. Not canine, but higher, almost human. He turned to see a shadow dart between trees, taller than a coyote. It moved strangely, not running, but gliding. Carlos stubbed out his cigarette to investigate. but the wet ground showed no footprints. Just one patch of disturbed clay, as if something heavy had been dragged. 4:42 p.m. Mail carrier. Jeff Harper noticed the greenhouse door ajar while making his rounds. Unusual, since Ron always kept it latched. Jeff approached, but didn't enter. Through the translucent wall, he saw orchids on the nearest shelf wilted like they'd been scalded. A cold steel Voyager folding knife lay open near the entrance. The blade was clean, but the grip was damp, as if dropped with wet hands. 4:47 p.m. Ron's Casio Pro Trek watch stopped. The altimeter read 285 feet, normal elevation for the area. The barometer logged a pressure spike 1 minute prior, from 2991 to 3015 in Hg. The weather station 2 miles away recorded no such fluctuation. 4:50 p.m. A crow with a broken wing fell near the old well. Still alive when found by a search K9 handler, it clutched a plastic chip. The Medtronic SyncGuard GPS tracker that should have been on Ron's wrist. The vet later estimated time of death between 4:48 and 4:52 p.m. 4:55 p.m. Ron's sister Margaret already held her phone, awaiting his call. By 4:58 p.m., her finger tapped the table. At 5 p.m., no screen illumination. 5:01 p.m., 6 rings, then voicemail. She redialed at 5:03 p.m., voicemail again. 5:03 p.m. The GPS bracelet's final transmission pinged 92 feet from the greenhouse, precisely at the well, yet the chip now rested in a dead bird's beak. 5:15 p.m. Linda Everett noticed Ron's greenhouse light still on while checking mail. Approaching, she spotted the open knife. Her dog whined and pulled its leash toward the woods. Linda called 911. 5:32 p.m. First responders arrived. Deputy Evans immediately identified Salomon Quest 4D GTX boot prints, deep tread marks leading to the well. The left print sank deeper than the right, suggesting Ron limped or carried weight on that side. 5:45 p.m. Investigators found the well cover, reinforced by Ron weeks prior, shifted 6 inches. A palm print marked the rusted metal, the index finger abnormally extended like he'd reached for something in the gap. An orange fabric scrap floated in the well's base puddle, yet Ron's jacket showed no damage when he'd left home. 6:20 p.m. K9 Rex tracked from greenhouse to well, then froze. The dog backpedaled, howling with tail tucked. His handler later stated, "He acted like something. Not alive was down there." 7:20 p.m. Detectives searched the greenhouse. Beneath a dead orchid, they found a property sketch marked Zone Q at the well, dated the day before. A note read, "Check levels, 4:30 p.m. 7:45 p.m. Ron's computer history revealed a 4:15 p.m. search, Houston Geomagnetic Anomalies 2023. Browser records also showed articles on abandoned wells' acoustic properties. 8:30 p.m. Margaret flew in from Tulsa. She confirmed Ron would have activated his jacket's 110 decibel emergency whistle, audible for a third of a mile, if in distress. No one heard a sound. 9:00 p.m. The well measured 15 feet deep, matching Ron's journal entries. Murky water showed no visible remains. Next day divers found only a rusted bucket with a severed rope. 11:30 p.m. Lab analysis confirmed Ron's fingerprints and orchid sap on the knife. But the blade's base held an oily residue, technical-grade petroleum jelly matching his homemade repellent. The sealed repellent bottle remained in his jacket pocket. 11:47 p.m. Final anomaly. Overnight, every greenhouse orchid died. Leaves blackened, stems liquefied. A botanist noted, "This resembles thermal shock, though temperatures never dipped below 50 degrees. Next morning, security footage from a neighbor's road-facing camera showed a 4:46 p.m. flash from Ron's property, lightning bright but silent. Simultaneously, sensors recorded an electromagnetic spike. The lead detective's report later stated, "Evidence contradicts itself. Tracks lead to the well, but no body. A dead bird carries the GPS chip. The watch stops before disappearance. Our only witness can't testify." 4:46 p.m. The surveillance camera at Mr. Davidson's property, located 400 feet from Ron's greenhouse, captured an anomaly. The lens pointed at the dirt road registered a sharp flash of light coming from the oak grove. Not a diffuse glow, but a distinct pulse lasting 0.8 seconds. The subsequent police report noted brightness matched a lightning strike at 1,000 feet, but radars showed no storm activity. Neighbor Linda, who was in her kitchen facing the same direction, later told investigators, "I thought someone turned on a spotlight, but Ron didn't own equipment like that." 4:47 p.m. Ron's wristwatch stopped at the moment of the flash. A Casio technician later confirmed the CR-232 battery was at 98% charge with no mechanical damage. The halt was instantaneous. The last recorded barometer reading showed 30.15 nhg, 0.24 units above normal for the elevation. A meteorology engineer from Texas A&M University commented, "Such spikes occur during rapid temperature shifts or electromagnetic disturbances, but there were no power lines or industrial facilities within 3 miles." 4:48 p.m. Construction worker Carlos Mendoza heard metallic scraping near the well. Turning, he saw only a crow convulsing on the ground. By the time he approached, the bird lay motionless, clutching a plastic rectangle with a Medtronic logo in its beak. Carlos left it untouched, later explaining to police, "Looked like some electronics. On job sites, they train us not to touch unfamiliar devices." 4:50 p.m. Veterinarian. Dr. Alice Turner determined the crow's time of death, between 4:48 and 4:52 p.m. The cause was a fractured skull base, as if the bird had been slammed against a hard surface. Yet the area contained no rocks or structures to collide with. The sole anomaly, burn marks on its feet resembling high-voltage static discharge. 4:52 p.m. Detective Adrian Cruz noticed an odd pattern in the clay near the greenhouse. The left Salomon Quest 4D GTX boot prints had uniform spacing, but every third impression sank 0.3 inches deeper. A forensic specialist reconstructed the gait. Consistent with carrying a 1520 lb load shifted between hands, no objects matching that weight were found nearby. 4:55 p.m. Lab technicians discovered microscopic copper particles on the cold steel Voyager knife's grip alongside Ron's fingerprints. Chemical analysis revealed 92% Cu, 6% SN, 2% trace metals, composition matching antique tools. No such items existed in Ron's home. 4:57 p.m. Ron's sister Margaret began fidgeting with her phone. During her interview, she stated he never missed check-ins. Even during his heart attack, he called right at 5 p.m. At 4:58 p.m., for the first time in 11 years, she dialed his number herself. 6 rings, then voicemail. 5 p.m. The Medtronic SyncGuard GPS bracelet should have transmitted its scheduled signal. The company's servers received coordinates near the well at 5:03 p.m. A Medtronic technician clarified, "This device transmits automatically every 15 minutes. Manual activation isn't possible." 5:03 p.m. As the chip sent its final signal, the dead crow already lay in an evidence bag. The pathologist noted, "Avian rigor mortis set in abnormally fast. 12 minutes post-mortem versus the standard 30-plus minutes." 5:15 p.m. Linda Everett checked her mailbox. Her normally calm German Shepherd whined and strained toward Ron's property. The police report documented, "Animal refused to approach within 30 feet of the greenhouse. 5:32 p.m. Officer Evans observed the well's rusted lid shifted just enough for a hand to slip through. Fresh scratches marred the interior metal, as if someone had tried pushing it open from below. 5:45 p.m. K9 handler Jason Wright released search dog Rex near the greenhouse. The dog tracked eagerly but froze at the well, howling before seizing. The vet found no physical trauma. Pure panic attack, like he detected something beyond known scent parameters. 6:20 p.m. Divers found no trace of Ron in the well. At 10 feet depth, sonar detected a 16-inch circular object on the bottom. When a diver attempted retrieval, EMF meters spiked. The team leader aborted the operation. 7:01 p.m. Detective crews discovered a property diagram under a dead orchid pot. The Zone Q marking by the well was circled in red. Corner notations read 4:30 p.m. and levels, handwriting matching Ron's journal. 7:45 p.m. Ron's computer history showed searches at 4:15 p.m. for Houston's geomagnetic anomalies and acoustic resonance in abandoned wells. 8:30 p.m. Margaret confirmed to police. He always wore a 1 to 10 decibel whistle on his collar, loud as an ambulance siren. If conscious, someone would have heard. 9 p.m. Divers completed their search, recovering only an old bucket with a snapped rope. The team leader later confided, "The water felt wrong, too viscous, like it had excess metal content." 11 Mars p.m. The knife blade bore traces of technical-grade petroleum jelly, identical to Ron's homemade repellent. The repellent bottle was found sealed in his windbreaker pocket. 11:47 p.m. Every greenhouse orchid died overnight. Botanist Dr. Emily Chen noted, "Leaves blackened in 8 hours, a process normally taking weeks, consistent with powerful oxidizers or extreme cold." The thermometer read a steady 54 Krieger. Next day, reviewing Davidson's footage in slow motion revealed the 4:46 p.m. flash originated not from ground level but 6 feet up, Ron's exact height. Yet 3 mature oaks stood between the camera and light source, which should have blocked direct illumination. Detective Cruz closed the case file, telling his partner, "Every fact here contradicts another. Like physics operates differently on that lot." Only Linda's account defied explanation. During the flash, the oak shadows elongated unnaturally fast. Within them flickered an orange glint, precisely matching Ron's jacket. Yet the sun never broke through the clouds that day. The investigation was gaining momentum, but each new fact only deepened the mystery. At 5:03 p.m., when Ron's GPS bracelet transmitted its final signal, the crow with an embedded chip in its beak was already bagged as evidence. Dr. Turner, the veterinarian who examined the bird, was unequivocal. "Rigor mortis set in just 12 minutes after death. That's impossible without external intervention. The bird's body temperature was 101.7 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees above normal, as if its insides had been heated from within." Detective Cruz subpoenaed data from Medtronic's servers. Michael Shaw, the company's technical specialist, stated, "The device transmits data every 15 minutes. Manual activation isn't possible, but the 5:03 p.m. signal had a 3-minute delay." Shaw displayed the readout. "Transmissions typically take 0.3 seconds. This one lasted 1.2 seconds, like the signal passed through interference." At 5:15 p.m., neighbor Linda stepped out to check her mail. Her normally calm German Shepherd whined and strained toward Ron's property. K9 officer Jason Wright later noted in his report, "The dog refused to approach within 30 feet of the greenhouse. Hackles raised, pupils dilated. textbook response to an unrecognized threat. Officer Evans, inspecting the well at 5:32 p.m., spotted fresh scratches on the underside of the lid. Metallurgist David Clark from the University of Texas analyzed samples. The marks were made by something harder than steel, possibly tungsten carbide. No tools on the property have that coating. Divers deployed into the well at 6:20 p.m. found no trace of Ron. Their sonar detected a circular object 16 inches in diameter at 10 feet depth. Team leader Mark Tanner would later testify, "Our equipment spiked when we tried approaching. The magnetometer registered 500 microteslas, equivalent to an industrial transformer. By 7 p.m., detective crews discovered a property blueprint beneath a dead orchid pot. The well was circled in red marker with Zone Q and levels beside a handwritten 4:30 p.m. Forensic analysis confirmed. It's Ron's handwriting. Ron's computer history revealed searches at 4:15 p.m. for articles about Houston's geomagnetic anomalies. His browser had an open PDF, acoustic resonance in abandoned wells, an unaccounted risk factor. Ron's sister Margaret told police he always wore that 110 decibel whistle on his collar, loud as an ambulance siren. If he'd been conscious, someone would have heard. At 11:12 p.m., lab technicians identified technical-grade petroleum jelly on a knife blade, identical to Ron's homemade repellent. Yet the repellent bottle was found sealed in his windbreaker pocket. Overnight, every orchid in the greenhouse died. Botanist Dr. Emily Chen observed, "Leaves blackened in 8 hours, a process that normally takes weeks." Spectral analysis detected an unknown sulfur-rich compound. The next day, police re-examined Davison's security footage. Slow-motion review revealed the 4:46 p.m. light flare originated not from ground level, but 6 feet high, Ron's exact height. A NASA JPL optics consultant noted, 3 mature oaks stood between the camera and light source. The beam should have scattered, yet it's perfectly focused on the recording. Detective Cruz closed the case file, telling his partner, "Every fact here contradicts another. It's like physics operates differently on that property." The sole unexplained account came from neighbor Linda. During the flare, she'd seen the oak shadows elongate unnaturally fast. Within them flickered an orange glint, the exact shade of Ron's jacket. Yet the sun never broke through the clouds that day. A year later, at exactly 5:03 p.m. Houston time, Margaret Mercer's phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. The screen displayed an unknown number with a 7113 area code. She picked up, expecting to hear another investigator. Instead, 3 seconds of complete silence, then a dull metallic clang, like someone punching a rusted barrel. Margaret froze. She'd recognize that sound anywhere, the exact same echo the old well cover made when she and her brother checked it as kids. At the police station, Sergeant Evans was reviewing the updated case database when a Medtronic SyncGuard alert flashed on his screen. Signal detected from device 4587332. Coordinates 29.7604° N, 95.3698° a spot 100 feet from the well. Transmission time 5:03 p.m., March 15, 2023. The problem? The calendar read 2024. Medtronic technician Michael Shaw called for emergency consultation, checked server logs. Ron Mercer's device had transmitted data. But not now. The system logged it exactly a year ago, only now updating the status. As if the signal traveled through a time delay. Veterinarian Turner double-checked her notes. The chipped crow died between 4:45 and 4:50 p.m. Rigor mortis set in before 5 UG. No doubt. Meanwhile, Margaret still held the phone. The clang repeated, clearer now, rhythmic, like Morse code. She scribbled the sequence on a napkin. 3 short, pause, 2 long. Neighbor Linda, visiting by chance, clutched her chest. That's the rhythm of the tune Ron always whistled while gardening. At 5:07 p.m., the call dropped. Margaret redialed. The operator said the number didn't exist. That evening, Detective Cruz accessed the GPS ankle monitor's black box. Beyond coordinates, it recorded pulse and skin temperature. Final readings: 122 BPM for marathoner Ron, extreme stress. 93.6 degrees, 2 degrees below normal. But the accelerometer data was strangest. At 5:02:58 p.m., a sudden jolt registered 37 FTS2, equivalent to freefall. The catch: to hit that acceleration, Ron would have had to sprint jump into the well, or be yanked down. Dr. Emily Chen, re-examining the dead orchids, made a discovery. Microscopic tungsten particles clung to the roots, same material that scratched the well cover. At 9 p.m., Margaret handed the napkin to police. A Rice University acoustics expert identified the sound. Impacts on 0.12, 0.2-inch thick metal. But with an anomaly, each strike preceded by an 11 Hz infrasound pulse. Linda suddenly recalled, on the day Ron vanished at exactly 5:03 p.m., her dog howled at that frequency. The vet later confirmed 11 Hz triggers animal panic. Next morning, the dive team resurveyed the well with ground-penetrating radar. At 12.5 feet down, the device showed a 3-foot-wide cavity. But as diver Mark Tanner approached, his camera captured an anomaly. Amid the silt lay what looked like a wristwatch. When retrieval was attempted, the watch vanished from sonar. Yet Tanner swore he saw a Casio face frozen at 4:47 p.m. The final act came a week later. Margaret received a small cardboard box. Inside, wrapped in oiled paper, was the Medtronic GPS chip from Ron's ankle monitor, his serial number engraved. Forensics found the chip coated in organic matter resembling bird droppings, but with abnormally high sulfur content. Stranger still, the microchip emitted a faint signal, though its battery should have died within 72 hours. When Shaw connected it to diagnostics, the screen displayed last transmission. Today, 5:03 p.m. Coordinates pointed to an empty field 12 miles from Ron's property. Records revealed those coordinates once held a UT Austin Mobile Geomagnetic Research Lab. On the day Ron disappeared, their instruments logged an electromagnetic spike at 5:03 p.m. Lead researcher Dr. Alan Waite later admitted they'd been studying area anomalies but didn't inform police, as data was preliminary. Now, only an abandoned 1980s well remains there. Its cover, like Ron's, bears tungsten carbide scratches. Margaret sometimes visits at 5:03 p.m. And if the wind blows east, she swears a rhythmic clang echoes from the depths. 3 short, pause, 2 long, like a signal crossing through time.